We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform. On this episode of ResiWeek, Bose acquires McIntosh, pandemic lessons for manufacturers, and the Apple TV display, maybe. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 459, Bosintosh. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by two of my longtime friends. First, we have the incomparable Mr. David Pedigo. He's the Chief Operations Officer at Trinnov Audio. How you doing, Dave?
I am super. Thanks for asking. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm fighting a cold, which is why I sound the way I sound. And I'll try very hard not to cough in anybody's ear. If I do, blame Mitchell. Then we have the one and only Mr. Jason Knott. He's the evangelist over at D-Tools. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great. And Matt, you sound really sexy with that gravelly voice.
Thank you. It's what I'm going for. I'll be recording.
To one of us. You sound sexy to one of us.
You don't have to single yourself out like that, Dave. It's fine. You can take it. I'll be recording a series of Chris Stapleton covers when we're done. All right, gentlemen, we're going to kick this off with stories that I don't want to say shook, but man, it lit up my social media like crazy last week when McIntosh Group was sold to the Bose Corporation. The transaction happened on the 15th of November. Highlander Partners is a Dallas private investment firm, and they announced the sale of that portfolio company, McIntosh Group, to Bose, which brings together the luxury audio brands of obviously McIntosh, Sonus Faber, and the engineering company out of Connecticut. Thank you. Sorry. In Bose. Dave, I want to start with you on this because this kind of came out of nowhere and seems like I'm going to say kind of an interesting marriage, only in the sense that, especially in the residential world, unless you're a diehard Bose fan, not too many people are putting Bose in the luxury audio caliber of McIntosh. And I'm in some of those McIntosh groups. They don't equate the two as, shall we say, similar. They recognize the fact they're both audio companies, and that's about as far as it goes. What do you think brought around this purchase, and what does this do to the landscape of luxury audio?
First of all, I think what brought it is the fact that it was owned by a private equity firm, and private equity firms are there for one reason:
to be fickle,
to build a brand and then to make money. So as I was saying to you before, I was very, very lucky enough to meet Bob Maresca, and I think I'm pronouncing it right, the chairman of Bose. Very brilliant man and really humble, like really super nice guy. But he's also an MIT grad. He's no dummy. And so I look at this as there is probably a strategy beyond just an influx of revenue and being able to use the McIntosh brand name in one way or another. I would think that probably in the short term, there's not a lot of changes, both at McIntosh and at Sonus Faber, other than there's probably things might, I don't know, but might relax a little bit. Working for private equity can be challenging for sure. And it might be that this is just an investment on Bose's part, but I would think that Bose probably has something up their sleeve, and they will use some of the intellectual property that both McIntosh and Sonus Faber has to develop a product for them down the line. Do I think that this is something that is going to significantly alter the higher end audio market? Not anytime soon. maybe several years down the road, Bose will have the ability to put out a product that could be earth shattering, which I don't have any information of, but we know one thing: Bose knows how to market the hell out of things. And so, if anything else, it brings a marketing capability that that isn't there right now. So, I have heard the rumorings that the sales for McIntosh and Sonos Faber were struggling just a little bit, and that wouldn't surprise me, being owned by private equity firms. So this is probably a good thing ultimately for the McIntosh brand and Sonos Faber for sure.
Jason, that is the issue with private equity, right? Is too often we see this where a PE group buys somebody, they try to turn a quick buck on them. They'll do a little bit of innovation, maybe, but they don't know the space. They don't really care. They're in a completely different business. Do you see a trickle down? And again, I'm not trying to be negative here, but or derogatory at all. But do you see potentially a trickle down effect in some of the engineering? Because it's a different type of engineering, I'd say, at McIntosh versus Bose. Bose, well, occasionally, shall we say, teased in the residential space. They have an incredibly solid footing in commercial, live sound, live production, etc. Like in 2023, they're a $3 billion sales company. They're massive. They're not just, the headphones you see on the planes. Do you think that there will be a trickle down effect from, McIntosh into Bose? Or do you think that this will possibly just be one of those, family of brands where they're kind of run independently?
The answer, I think, is yes, but let me remind you that Bose did spin off its professional audio division last year. So remember, they're right up the turnpike from me. So I have actually numerous acquaintances who work at Bose, so I have a little bit of inside info here. This is not at the C-suite level, but I can tell you at the art that over the past several years, they've pretty much decimated their R&D. And the people at Bose R&D are very excited about this because they think there's an opportunity to be able to lean on some of the engineering capabilities that are happening at McIntosh to help at Bose. So internally, they're very excited about it at that level, I can tell you. You're right about the private equity. It's all about getting blood from a stone, from a standpoint. I think I agree with Dave that ultimately this is a good thing for the company. And, it's funny, sit on an airplane. The next time you go on an airplane and sit next to somebody and you mention what you do for business and say, oh yeah, we deal with high performance audio, and just wait to see
Bose,
how long
right?
they say Bose.
I have the Wave thing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So the perception is to Dave's point, the marketing engine there that they can possibly bring that they have built in the past. And, now they've got this, they'll have what is unquestionably a higher end product to be able to sell. And the only part of this that I'm completely unfamiliar with is the automotive side of this. And I know I was reading some posts about people talking about, where Bose stands in terms of what vehicles they're in, which ones McIntosh is in, which ones are Harman is in with Mark Levinson, etc. So there seems to be a highly competitive situation going on at the car audio side of this too, that I'm not familiar with. But ultimately, I think this is a shot in the arm for Bose. I think internally, the people in Bose that I speak with are very excited about it. And I think it's good for McIntosh too to get out of, probably being, wrung for every nickel at every second by a private equity firm.
Yeah, as the owner of multiple GMCs, I'm a big fan of Bose audio because it's been in every truck I've had. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from CE Pro. What has the audio industry learned from the pandemic supply chains shortages? Go read through this. There's quite a number of interviews with a couple different manufacturers, specifically on the pro side, but again, it's relatable here, talking about how the pandemic has shifted the way in which they view back orders for parts, materials, and end products, as well as how those shortages in the supply chain forced manufacturers to retool a lot of products. So, Jason, let me come back to you on this one. When you see this, when you follow this, I kind of like the aspect of the article where they're talking about forcing, retooling. I don't think that's bad to have the ability to kind of have arguably forced innovation, finding new ways to make that end result out of available products. Is that long-term a good thing, or is that complicating matters and just increasing essentially the end cost to the consumer?
It's a very good question, because I know I speak to manufacturers all the time who have talked about the retooling process, and whenever I hear that, that means to me they're innovating. If they're so ultimately that's probably a good signal for a company, because it means that they're moving ahead. But the thing I liked about this article is it really could almost apply not just to the audio business, but the entire smart home industry, of what they went through during the pandemic. And we all know which companies we're talking about that were at 6-month, 10-month, 11-month backlogs for products. Loyal integrators that were loyal to certain brands then ended up going to other brands because they needed to have product. I talked to integrators who were switching the way they were doing installations because of the lack of availability of products. They were doing them room by room, starting with kitchens and great rooms, and then saying, "We'll get to the rest of the house when we get the product." I still love the story of one integrator who told me that he had a customer who bought another house that had the equipment in it that they wanted, so that he could go tear that equipment out of that other house and put it in his new house. But I'm going to be a little bit self-serving here, in that one of my takeaways from this is the need for manufacturers to really focus on data. And one of my roles here at D-Tools is to be able to help manufacturers look at the sales cycles of their products. So we're able through D-Tools to be able to show them not just when they get the PO, when they're getting that purchase order, we're showing them the sales cycle in front of that for when the dealer is booking the business. And then we're showing the sales cycle even farther in front of that for when the customer is receiving the proposal. So the ability to focus on data to be able to do predictive inventory management as a manufacturer is really important. And it's, one of the reasons that I'm at D-Tools, quite frankly.
I can tell you that is a big part of my job there, Jason, is just trying to predict the future sales.
How do you go about trying to determine, not only from a parts aspect, but even an end product? Like, obviously you can forecast to some degree, but I know there's a science, but how much of it is art?
There's a lot of art to it, and it's a lot of speculation. So you have your data, you have your season, you can look at your seasonality, you can see where things are going. Going back to running the market research for CEDIA, you would see how the dealers are, which they're usually almost always overly optimistic as to how things are going. They're entrepreneurs. And then so you have to say, okay, well, we're going to take this and we're going to cut it by 20% because they typically go over 20%. So, and then like for us at Trinnov, as an example, we have sales reps in the US. So we're talking to our reps and seeing what's in the pipeline. And there's a lot, like you're using tools like, an ERP, or you're using a CRM, or a combination of the two. So it's a lot of kind of going in and educated guesswork, I'd say, which is the hard part. So I'll go back to what you said for a second, Jason, which is, in ways, I almost think that the supply chain issue stifled innovation as much as it might have created innovation, at least from a manufacturer's perspective. So there are still products that we are dealing with inside of a product line where there is a 1-year lead time to get that product. And those lead times have been broken. So you are then spending some time if there is a influx of orders or something of that nature, then instead of doing it on R&D, it is now trying to find and source the same product, whether it's a power supply or it's a board or whatever. And so it is pretty broken. I mean, when I worked at Orlex, they talked about shipping in there and the shipping costs. When I had first started, we didn't buy a lot from China, very little, but we would buy a sea container, or we'd send a sea container out, and a 20-foot sea container would cost us maybe $6,000, $4,000 to $6,000. And then now, it was 18 months later, $22,000, $23,000. So the supply chain issue has also made stress on the manufacturers for, how much are we, pushing the cost onto the customer? How much can we absorb? And so it just hasn't righted itself yet. It's better, but it is nowhere near where it needs to be. And so you look at most of the manufacturers in the industry are still relatively small when people think of big business or whatever. And so there's such a fine line in that ordering of how much stock do we need to have now versus what we don't order, because it puts stress on the cash flow. So like you go back to the last story, you talk about private equity, those kind of things. Well, if you have enough cash, if you're backed with enough cash to be able to get a good stock, that's great. But there's many manufacturers that don't have the cash flow to buy a year and a half worth of inventory and then hope that it sells.
I was going to say, I'll flip that even another, just on the flip side of that, Dave. I know I talked to a manufacturer who he was having the same issues that you were describing in terms of, ordering things from China, coming over, supply chain was tight, anticipated, and then all of a sudden, oh, we got it sooner, we got it quicker, and he didn't have the warehouse space. Now all of a sudden he went from the other side of the coin to, I don't have the warehouse space, and he had to do a fire sale of equipment that wasn't anticipated, because, as you say, it's a lot of art associated with this, for sure.
I won't say which company, but we'll just say personally. So we had something on order, and it was 18 months behind. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, now we have all 18 months, and you owe us all this right now because you had ordered it 18 months ago. They didn't even tell us really that it was. So we basically lose a certain amount of sales over that 18-month period of time. And then they expect you to then have that 18 months of demand right in front of you. So it's really, really tough. A warehouse space, trust me, I know that too, because I've been dealing with, we deal with amplifiers and stuff, and they take up space, and it's like, where do you put these? It's a mess. It's still a mess.
And let me throw out one other kind of ramification that came out of this whole scenario is, and I'm going to go back to my CE Pro hat for all those years, is the first victim from a lot of this was marketing. Especially when the first tariffs started to hit, when Trump's first administration, then there was, we now all of a sudden we're paying 25% more. It's all coming out of marketing. Then when they were starting to get gouged on the component level during the pandemic, a lot of it came out of marketing. So a lot of the marketing budgets that were associated with I'll say audio companies, but not just the audio companies, all the companies completely, I would say, disappeared, but they evaporated pretty darn quick.
There's only so many spots in a company where you can pull, fiscal resources from.
And being on the side of those in previous lives, those are very, very difficult conversations to have, because there's no right answer.
No, there's not. Not at all. All right, gentlemen, let's get to a future casting conversation that we've had multiple times for fun. This also comes to us from CE Pro. Excuse me. An Apple Smart TV is rumored to be on the horizon again. Supposedly, Apple is reportedly considering the idea of a Apple-branded TV set if the new smart home products do well. They have we're expected to see some new iPad-like smart home devices coming in March, being announced in March. So again, this is all hyperbole and guesswork and all that jazz, but it's fun for a Thanksgiving day as you're hopefully driving somewhere. They're saying that if these iPad-like devices do well, we could expect to see potentially, possibly, maybe, sort of, kind of, maybe, an Apple branded TV in the future. Dave, let me start with you on this. Why would Apple get in? Like, why would they do this?
This is just some dummy trying to come up with a story to get clicks, I think. So,
but I'm excited, Dave.
Since 2011.
I'm so excited. This is what I want.
I have been hearing about this since I was skinny-ish. No, look, maybe it happens. Maybe it happens. However, what are the margins in a TV?
On a good one, or like a Costco Best Buy edition?
On your everyday
$200.
No,
maybe.
No, as a percentage, their margin
3%,
10%,
2%, on a high end set. Although I'm in Canada, we're always getting screwed. Yeah, no.
Apple
if you're
doesn't make products that you can't get good margin out of. I look at it from a business standpoint. They've been talking about this. They're like, ooh, before Steve Jobs died, ooh, he said something and they really figured out the TV. Thanks Walter Isaacson for teasing that and then not getting crap. So no, I honestly look, until I actually see it, I think they are not really truly interested in creating a TV. It just doesn't make financial sense for them.
Hold on, just before we go to Jason, Walter, he didn't mean it. Don't come at us. Not that he listens to the show, but if he were to, Dave said it. I didn't. I think you're great. I'm a big fan, long-time follower, first-time caller. Jason.
So Matt and Dave, you guys missed the funnest part of this article. That it said that the TV would possibly come with a quote-unquote robotic arm.
No.
So just to have fun, I went into ChatGPT and said, what would you do with a robotic arm attached to the television set? Here's what it answered. In a retail environment, it would grab the customers to do demos. It would do sign language. It would mimic the movements of the people on the screen. It would move the remote control. It would automatically reposition the TV. It would manipulate props. It would paint or sculpt based on what the TV is instructing it to do. And this is my favorite. It would play a musical instrument based upon what the TV is reciting.
That's the one I like the most.
Now that is interesting. If it can't fold laundry, though, I don't care.
So let's have just for a second, because it's fun. The only comparison I'll give you, Jason, is that when Apple makes a laptop like the one I'm on right now, there's no price comparison between the unit I'm on and the $399 or $199 that you guys would have at Best Buy on Thursday at 6 p.m. Right? They don't play in that entry level space. When you look at the ultra high end Samsungs, heck, even TLC, Sony's, those are expensive sets that all have margin. Could they actually play in that, 65 up at $8,000 with 16K video and a Retina display? Have you seen the price of their desktop monitors?
The equation I could think of when I saw this is Bang & Olufsen.
Yeah.
With their TVs, the gold-plated TVs and all that sort of stuff that they had that was, I would say, gimmicky, but they don't have that fan base that Apple has. So,
yeah.
So you're right. There will be people who will spend the money on that if they do it. Is it ever going to gain a market share in the custom space? No.
Unless most high net worth customers are all Apple families. If they could build the ecosystem, they might come.
I mean, my God, though, I've been hearing about HomeKit and
I'm getting so
all
excited,
this
Dave. Can't
for-
you tell? I am so excited right now.
Yeah.
So I think, Matt, I know of an integrator up there in Toronto, I remember, who put all his people in Nest t-shirts. He said, and because then they walk up to the household and the people think, oh my God, I know Nest. I know the brand. I know you. I can trust you. So you're right. Now all of a sudden you start carrying that TV, you put everybody, in your team in an Apple
We are an
t-shirt.
authorized Apple service provider.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's marketing, baby.
I just don't. It's just I'll just put it this way: I'm not holding my breath. That's for sure.
Oh, I'm not either. But
The robotic arm will hold your breath.
exactly.
No, that's fine. Please
Right here.
choke me out. I'm fine with it.
Hey, what you guys do?
It's if these work well, then we may consider to do this.
Yeah, no. Who knows? All I'm going to say as we wrap this up is if anyone's got a B&O, that 6-pack CD changer that went on the wall, I want one. Find me one, send it to me. I'd love you forever. Long time. All right, gentlemen, thank you both so much. If you're still with us, happy Thanksgiving. In a couple of days, I will be celebrating and eating turkey as a Canadian, which is entertaining to say the least, but that's what happens. Jason, if people want to connect with you, learn more about D-Tools, where can they do that?
They can go to our websites, d-tools.com. They can follow me on X, at Jason W. Knott, and on LinkedIn. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Mr. Pedigo, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Trinnov, where can they do that?
The easiest place to go for Trinnov is trinnov.com. And if they're curious about waveforming, trinnov.com/waveforming. And if you want to connect with me, you can just find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days, at Dave Pedigo.
Excellent. He will be bemoaning the loss of the Commanders to the victorious Dallas Cowboys, who you out cowboyed the Cowboys. It's impressive. All right. Thanks again. Happy Thanksgiving.
I wish I had 4 hands so I could give those Cowboys 4 thumbs down.
There you go. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter, X, whatever, at Matt D. Scott and most other social platforms. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is Erin Marmoran of EdTech. The world of higher ed AV is growing rapidly. That's why each month we hear from the best and brightest from colleges and universities all over the U.S. Check out EdTech on avnation.tv or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.